He karakia tīmata. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa paunamu te moana, hei huarahi mā tātou i te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou ia tātou, ki hei mauriora.
Kia ora koutou. Welcome to this webinar for the Kaipara District Plan Exposure Draft. Enjoy the webinar and enjoy getting involved with this great opportunity which Kaipara District Council has never had before, to be involved in an exposure draft for the district plan. This is the last ever Kaipara District Plan, so make the most of it. Get stuck in, Kaipara. Kia pai tō rā.
Kia ora and welcome to the District Planning Team's first webinar for the exposure draft for the Kaipara District Plan. With me tonight, I've got our lovely team of the District Plan, and I'd like to just quickly introduce who's here with me tonight. So I've got Michael Day, if you want to just say a quick hi, Michael. And Paul Vanders, you want to say hi?
Good evening.
Megan Walters. And Virginia Smith, who's hiding there. Excellent. So tonight we're going to be talking through the new exposure draft. Guys, do you just want to all mute, please? Thanks, guys. And just to give some context to tonight, so last year we put some discussion documents out into the public for feedback to see what people were thinking in terms of district planning. And then since September last year, we've been working with our elected members, taking draft provisions backwards and forwards to council, which were finalised in July this year. And so we are now bringing the public our very, very new and very exciting exposure draft. And so just a little bit of detail about that. You can find the exposure draft on our council website, and the link is up on the screen there. So feel free to access that. It's very glossy and hopefully you'll find it easy to navigate. We are running a series of public webinars over the next couple of weeks while we do our 6 weeks of engagement. So please feel free to come along to those. Tonight's webinar is just an overview of the district plan chapters and just a bit of information as we move into this consultation period. We are doing some public open days, so we'll have a slide on those towards the end of this presentation. We'd encourage you to come along if you've got questions or want to discuss your property or aspirations in terms of what you want to do. You can also chat to a planner, so phone myself or Paul, and we can talk you through anything that you want to over the phone, and then you can put your feedback in. And with the feedback, we are also going to have a service available to help you prepare your feedback to put in. It is important that we do this because this will feed into the proposed district plan, which will be publicly notified mid next year. So this is a really good opportunity to get on board, tell us what you think, tell us if we've got stuff wrong. So make sure you get involved. The feedback closes on Friday the 16th of September, so 6 weeks from now. So please do use this time to talk to us if you've got questions or concerns. And just if you're wanting a bit more context from today, jump on our website. We've got a district plan review web page, and on that you will find, if you click the exposure draft district plan link, we have 22 fact sheets on there for various topics, and they give you a little bit of an overview of what each chapter is about. And you can also click the link, which will take you to the relevant chapters in our e-plan. I also encourage you to have a look at the e-plan maps because you can search your property and it will also take you to the relevant chapters you need. If you click on the Engage tab, that'll tell you when all of our events are happening, and you can book your chat to the planner sessions through there, and obviously get the times for when we'll be in your area of the district. And have your say. If you click on that one, that will bring up the online submission form or feedback form, and there's also a downloadable version of that as well for you if you want to print it out and send it in or give it to us at the open days. So yeah, we look forward to engaging with you over the next 6 weeks. But right now I'm going to talk you through the key differences between the plan that we have at the moment and the exposure draft. And I think there's certainly been some improvements on what we have at the moment. So just a bit of background for those that don't know, the Operative District Plan was made operative back in 2013. So it was due for review soon anyway, being that it was getting towards its 10 years. And so because of its age, it's also a bit of out of date with our national and regional policy statements. So we needed to bring it up to speed anyway. But I think the key things that you will find different is that we did only have one rural zone in the operative district plan. So by doing the the exposure draft district plan, you'll see that we've introduced a whole lot more zones, and also we have taken some of the activities in the rural zone, like the environmental benefit lots, for example, but there's still some key differences there in terms of what that looks like. And I think the other thing with the business and industrial chapter in the operative district plan is it was trying to do a whole lot of things. And so by creating more zones in the exposure draft, we're giving a more tailored approach to those zones. And because the operative plan is an effects-based plan, the new plan will be an activities and effects-based plan. So it will produce better outcomes. The other thing is that the natural environment values chapter, which I will talk to a bit later, you know, we weren't doing such a good job. We were dealing with things at a very strategic level, but the exposure draft does a better job of that. And open space is not recognised as a land use in the operative plan currently. So with the exposure draft, I think the key message is that it gives effect to the national planning standards. It is a GIS-driven e-plan, so it is easy for you to use, and it's simple to dial in your property and find out which rules apply to your land. And as we get better at using e-plans, it provides a much more efficient service for our customers. So the other key thing, just to note, I've talked a little bit about the zones, but the thing that we want to get out of the exposure draft is a greater level of housing and lifestyle opportunities. So you'll see that we have 4 rural zones, so providing for the rural production zone, general rural lifestyle and settlement zones, 3 residential zones, so we're doing a medium density, low density and large lot residential zone. 2 industrial zones, so a heavy and light industrial zone, and then we will have a commercial zone separate to that as well. And then the open space and sports and active recreation zone. So there's 3 of those. One is the natural open space, one's open space and sports and active recreation. And those just provide a better approach for managing council reserves and open spaces. We are putting more up-to-date mapping into the exposure draft, so taking some of the maps that we have from the regional council and updating the older operative district plan maps, which includes flooding and coastal hazards. The other key thing is that we are giving effect to mana whenua aspirations in the exposure draft. So we've been working collaboratively with mana whenua to make sure that this plan sets a good example of the types of things that they would like to see in terms of environmental outcomes as well. So probably one of the things that's on most people's mind in the district is what have we got in store for the zoning? So definitely check out our zoning maps, which are based on the spatial plans many of you have probably been involved in previously, which were adopted by Council in December 2020. There are some differences between the spatial plan, which was a 30-year document, and the district plan, which is a 10-year document. So just be mindful of that when you open both documents and you think, oh, well, we haven't zoned everything. We do know that we have actually oversupplied the amount of extra land that we need for residential, commercial and industrial activities. And so we are anticipating quite a lot of feedback from landowners and developers in this space. So we know it will be a hot topic and we want to talk to you about it. So please do let us know if there are areas that you think we should pay more attention to. But some initial statistics for you. We're looking at 935 hectares more residential land, 54 hectares more commercial business land, and 127 hectares of industrial land across the district. So this puts Kaipara in a really strong position to grow and develop over the next 10 years. And probably the key thing there will be that a lot of that will be dependent on infrastructure and services being provided as well. So just a snapshot of the proposed zones. So I'm picking on Mangawhal tonight because it's got a combination of both urban and the rural zonings. So if you have a close look, it looks a bit black, but that's actually quite urban zoning around Mangawhal, around the estuary and that. And then on the outskirts, we've got a lot of rural lifestyle zoning, which takes into account all the smaller lots that have already been created through subdivision anyway, mixed with rural production zone, which is the darker shade of green, not the really bold one. And then the lighter shade of green is general rural zoning. And then, of course, the really prominent green is actually our open space zonings. So you can see, and the colours aren't terrific, but that's what we've got from the National Planning Standards. And so if you have a zoom around the GIS site, you'll see what we've put in certain areas, and we do want to have conversations with people in terms of their views on that. For Dargaville, same again. Dargaville is surrounded by rural zoning, both rural production zoning because of its good versatile soils, but also general rural as well. And I think the biggest thing with Dargaville is that there are some constraints as far as topography and our natural hazards overlays as well, especially with flooding. But you will see that we have put a lot of energy into providing a lot more residential opportunity for Dargaville Township, and the bright purple there is heavy industrial land. So we are opening up quite a bit more heavy industrial sites as well as light industrial, which is the lighter purple there as well. And towards the south, we've got a bit of rural lifestyle zoning mixed with large lot residential, and that's purely because some of those sites are topographically constrained or susceptible to flood risk as well. So we've been thinking carefully about how we do that. So certainly for people in Dargaville, we'd love to talk to you guys as well and see what you're thinking about various sites across those areas. And there are plenty more maps which we'll be taking around the communities as we do our roadshow. So pop on down and see us and talk to us. So tangata whenua, mana whenua. This chapter here is an exciting opportunity for the exposure draft because while we did refer to tangata whenua, mana whenua in the Operative District Plan, the National Planning Standards Directive is actually to have a standalone chapter which provides an overview of Kaipara's tangata whenua, mana whenua. And we have deliberately drafted it to be inclusive, so it's not just about our two settled iwi authorities in Kaipara, Te Roroa and Te Reo. We actually want to include everybody, and we will be having some conversations with all iwi authorities to get their input on the draft district plan. And I think the key thing with this chapter is that we really want plan users to be cognizant of the iwi and hapu environmental management plans that the iwi authorities have pulled together, and those set out what the aspirations and outcomes for iwi are. And so when people are using the district plan, we want them to look at those and pay attention to those and make that part of our plan. And that aligns with the objectives that we've included in the strategic direction chapter if you want to check those out. So they're very broad objectives that set out that vision for what mana whenua would like to achieve through the district plan. So leading on from that, we've got the infrastructure and energy and transport chapter. And this is an exciting opportunity for Kaipara to do better in this space. Renewable energy is something that could work in Kaipara, particularly given our west coast and the amount of sunshine that we do get in Kaipara. So have a look at the renewable energy chapter, and what we've tried to do there is make it as enabling as we possibly can. We do have provisions for other infrastructure, including regionally significant infrastructure. Some of the provisions won't be too distinctly different from the Operative District Plan, but something worth noting is that we do currently have a placeholder for the environmental engineering standards which will be replaced before the proposed plan is released next year. So just something to be mindful of if you're interested in that. And just in terms of the regionally significant infrastructure, what we've tried to do there is make it reflect all of the national planning tools that we have out there now. So the national policy statements and national environmental standards which apply. So we've brought the district plan up to date and to reflect those key documents. So hazards and risks. Hazards and risks are quite a key thing for Kaipara, given where we live, both coastal communities and some of the inland streams and rivers. But also contaminated land is something that district plans should address. And most of you may know that the national environmental standards for assessing and managing contaminants in soil are regulated through the NES. So we don't actually have any rules proposed in the exposure draft, but we are looking to include objectives and policies. Sorry, looks like the lights have just gone out in the office here. So hazardous substances is also another space where council actually don't have to have rules in the district plan around this, because we don't have specific functions anymore under the Resource Management Act. So we're not trying to duplicate any functions in the hazardous substances and new organisms legislation or the health and safety at work legislation, but we have included some provisions for different hazardous substances to be stored and used across the district. And so you might just want to check out our activity status table for these various quantity thresholds and provide feedback on that if it's something that you use in your day-to-day or through your business. So yeah, would love to hear from you in that space. And then back to the natural hazards and climate change discussion. So as I said, being where we are in Kaipara, there are some flood risks, and obviously climate change will have impacts on the district in the future. So we have needed to be cognizant of where we're heading in those spaces. So we have got new up-to-date flood hazard maps, which the Northern Regional Council implemented last year, and they will go into, they're in the exposure draft. We are waiting some additional flood modelling for the Raupo drainage catchment down in near Ruai. So the map that's inset there with the red around it, and this work will mean that things will change. So it won't look like the big blue blob that you can see on the screen there at the moment. And when we do that work, we will update the district plan to reflect that work. So a bit more happening in that space, but certainly we want to hear from you if you're in a flood risk area, and if you want to know what that means for you as far as building and development. There are some specific provisions in the natural hazards chapter. Right, one of my favourite topics, historical and cultural values. Now, the district plan is a really exciting opportunity for people in the community to get on board. We have actually already had and received a few nominations for new trees to be listed in the district plan. So thank you to people who have put those in already. But we do want more, and we also want to know about any historical buildings, sites or items that the community value and think should be protected in this district plan. We have looked at the items and buildings that were identified through the Operative district plan, but there are many more, and we're trying to identify new ones. So do feel free to let us know what those are, and we can get them evaluated, and same with the trees. Sites and areas of significance to Māori, we have identified the statutory sites and included them in the draft, but we are awaiting additional sites from mana whenua, which will be included in the plan as well. And I think just on this, while we're touching on it, just remember that the draft plan actually has no immediate legal effect at this stage in the process. So if anyone's worried about us identifying their house or their tree as being protected, at this stage, if it's in the Operative plan, it will have protection, but if it's just new in the exposure draft, it will have no legal weight at all. Right, subdivision. Now, many of you will be pretty excited about, well, hopefully pretty excited about the opportunities that will present through subdivision in the district plan. So in our urban zones, the large lot residential will start off at 1,000 square metres if services are available in that area, or 3,000 if they're not. Then we kick into the low density residential minimum lot size of 750 to 1,000 square metres. And medium density, we're looking at 400 to 750. We can go lower, but that's getting into the sort of 300 to 350 square metre lot range. So we thought we would put 400 in there as a starting point and see what the community thought. So certainly, I'm sure there'll be many of you that will think that that's great, or some that will think we need to go smaller or higher. But for many, this will mean that you can actually do infill development in existing areas as well. So I think that's a pretty exciting opportunity. In the rural zones, because we've got 4 new rural zones, so the rural lifestyle zone is the one where we're trying to provide a lifestyle option to people where they have a smaller area of rural land, but large enough you can have some animals and drive your ride on lawnmower round and round. So 1 hectare is the minimum size there with a 2 hectare average. And certainly this is just draft, so value input into that. In the rural production zone, we have a 20 hectare controlled activity status for subdivision to happen there, and we also have a 10 hectare discretionary pathway for horticultural blocks and blocks where there is a benefit to fragmenting it a little bit more. We are providing environmental benefit lots, so up to 3 lots at 1 hectare with a 20 hectare balance. So it's a 2 hectare feature minimum to qualify, but I will note that we have included provision for half a hectare where it's a wetland. So you don't need as much when it's a wetland to qualify for subdivision. And the reserve incentive lot is a new provision in the plan, which reflects our esplanade priority areas that we've identified in the plan, and some sites that are rural and have an identified esplanade priority area on them may be able to achieve a rural lifestyle size lot on them using that provision. And I'll just say here as well that rural subdivision is a package, so we actually do include provision also for boundary relocations, and yeah, and there are multiple options for subdivision. It's not just a one size fits all. So the incentivized ones are the environmental and the reserve incentive lot there. So same again for the general rural zone. We have a 20 hectare controlled starting point for 1 lot, which jumps up to a restricted discretionary activity for more than 2 lots. And again, the environmental benefit lots, same as above. It's also got the half a hectare if you're a wetland, as opposed to 2 hectares of a indigenous vegetation to protect. So, and same with the reserve incentive lot. So a good package for both of our rural zones there. And, you know, most landowners that have, you know, a couple of land holdings will still be able to do boundary relocations or consolidate titles if they choose to do so. And that's a pathway through the subdivision provisions as well. In the settlement zone, which is a new zone for Kaipara, it takes the same approach as the large lot residential, but noting that these areas are places like Tangataroria, Kaihu, Pahi, Tinapai, and so some of these places don't have services available, so it's expected that some will only ever be able to go to 3,000 square metres, but should services become available, then it provides a lot more opportunity. And I think the key thing with the settlement zone as well is it's not just residential development there. We are anticipating a little bit of commercial as well to help support some of those small areas, which will be settlement zone. Okay, the natural environment values. So this is a pretty exciting part of the district plan as well, because this is about protecting the landscapes and areas that a lot of us value as Kaipara people. So probably one of the key points to start off with is that the coastal environment in the Operative District Plan is reasonably extensive at the moment. So it's about 20%, and this will be shrunk down to about 8.6%. So it's not going to affect as many people, but it's going to be more specific to those areas that are actually in fact deemed coastal environment. So that is an improvement on the previous plan. But in saying that too, if you are in a coastal environment, you want to be checking out if there's any limitations or restrictions in terms of what you can do in there. Same with natural character areas. So this is new. So we're adopting mapped areas for natural character areas. Same with outstanding natural features, and there are in fact already outstanding natural landscapes in the Operative District Plan. So the exposure draft carries those over, and they are all mapped in the plan, ready for everyone to view. And so if your property falls within one of those overlays, which we call sensitive environments, it could be that you have some restrictions as far as how high you can build, and possibly even where you can build. So just check those out. And these provisions, while they might seem onerous, they reflect the direction of the regional policy statement, which is all about protecting these environments and landscapes that we value. So general district-wide matters. So we actually have quite a few general district-wide matters, and these reflect the new layout in the National Planning Standards template. So the first one is Earthworks, which I've got a more detailed slide on next. This chapter does include quarrying and mining activities. So if you're in one of those industries, you might want to check out that chapter. The light chapter is predominantly the same as what's in the Operative District Plan at the moment. So there's no major changes there. The noise chapter is also largely based on the Operative District Plan, with additional provisions for helicopter landing pads and wind turbines. So if you are thinking you want to get noisy, that's the chapter you go to. It will look and feel a lot different from the Operative District Plan. Has a couple of rules and then a couple of standards at the bottom, and hopefully that is fairly easy to follow. The signs chapter is again fairly consistent with the Operative District Plan in terms of sizes of signs and the provisions we were trying to get to ensure that we don't have a lot of visual clutter around the district. One of the key things is that we've also tried to get consistency with the signs bylaw. So this is a positive, which means that there's less conflicts between the two documents. And then new to the district plan, we've got the temporary activities rule. So if you are looking to do a temporary activity, or you regularly do temporary activities, this part of the plan will hopefully assist with that. And same with the genetically modified organisms. This is a new part to the district plan as well, but not new for Northland. So just a note on that we have adopted the same provisions used by Far North District Council, Whangarei District Council, and the Auckland Unitary Plan. So it keeps all of the northern councils consistent with one another. And so they've already been through quite a rigorous process there, and we're just looking to pick those up and to include them in the Kaipara District Plan. Right, so back to the earthworks. Earthworks are quite a fundamental thing for Kaipara because everybody likes digging and moving land around. One of the things that we've tried to do here is provide some consistency with the regional plan, and particularly in the rural and rural production zones, we've provided for much larger volumes and areas of earthworks to be undertaken. The provisions also apply to farm quarries, mining and quarrying activities. So yeah, you definitely want to check out that chapter if you're doing any of those types of activities. And same with the clean fill material. So just if you are somebody that does a lot of importation of clean fill or not clean fill, then we'd be keen to hear from you to see whether these volume thresholds actually meet your needs or not. And again, as I said before, with the sensitive environments, so the coastal environment, high natural character areas, and the outstanding natural character areas and outstanding natural features and landscapes, and flood hazard areas. There are some restrictions in there in terms of what you can do. So you definitely want to have a look at those if you're within one of those areas, because it might mean that you're going to be restricted going forward. But this is your chance to let us know, and we can try and fix it if it's fixable. Right, urban and rural land use. So I won't spend too much time on this slide, but this gives you a bit of context that we have a number of zones going into the exposure draft, and that's to provide a more tailored approach to those zones so that the outcomes are more about what we want for the individual zones as opposed to having a one size fits all. And I think to be helpful in the urban zone provisions, just some kind of key take homes for everybody. The intention of drafting these chapters is that we enable and promote growth and development where we can. So we are providing for residential units and minor residential units up to 80 square metres, home businesses, visitor accommodation as permitted activities. So I think this should be good news for a lot of residents that live in Kaipara, to know that if you need to build a granny flat in the future, you're going to be able to do that fairly readily. The other thing is multi-unit housing, so where there's 3 or more per site. This is something quite new for Kaipara as well. We don't have a lot of multi-unit development in Kaipara at the moment, but as a restricted discretionary activity in the medium density zone, we will start to see a little bit more of that happening. And same with retirement villages. These will be provided as restricted discretionary activities in both the medium and low density zones. So at least there'll be somewhere certainly for me to live when I get to that age. So I think it'll be great to see more of those types of developments happening. Just a quick note that there's no urban design guidelines in the draft plan. We are still working on these, but we haven't forgotten about them. So there will be some guidance as far as what we're looking for in terms of good urban design practice. In terms of a commercial zone, we are looking at more permissive building controls, including mixed use development. So this will mean we can have residential in amongst shops and cafes, and trying to get a bit of a mixed use feel in some of our towns and villages in Kaipara. And the industrial zone, we're taking a similar approach where we really want to be able to enable development to maximize their sites. And I guess the proviso to both the commercial and industrial zone is that the provisions that are in the plan are mostly about protecting the amenity of neighbouring properties and sensitive zones. So if you live next door to a residential environment, for example. And then the 3 open space zones, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, are to provide for recreational activities. So this will give us much more flexibility with how we manage our natural open spaces, which are our recreational parks and reserves, versus our sports and facilities for sporting activities and playgrounds, etc. So in terms of the rural zone, the focus here has really been on the protection of versatile soils and highly productive land, which is our key priority, giving effect to the National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Soils, which will be very soon out from the Ministry for the Environment. So we want to make sure we're one step ahead and getting our district plan ready for that. Hence, we've proposed 4 new zones, which is the Rural Production Zone, based on the Kaipara Kai report, which was done some time ago, the general rural zone, and then the rural lifestyle and settlement zones. So all have quite different focuses, but again, it's about providing a range of opportunities, and certainly the focus for the rural production and general rural being on protecting that productive land for the future. But again, similar to the urban zones, we are providing opportunity for more growth and development through second residential units. If you've got a 40 hectare site, minor residential units, which are slightly bigger in the rural zones at 90 square metres, home businesses, visitor accommodation, And these are all provided for in the exposure draft as permitted activities. So I'd love to hear if you think those are a good idea or if you think that they're not a good idea. So let us know. The focus, as I said, is on rural activities. So we have put more emphasis on rural production activities and rural industries to support what's happening in those rural areas. So we're trying to be as enabling as we possibly can. It is important to note the interconnectedness with the other overlays. So again, the coastal environment, the ONFs, the ONLs, and the hazard mapping, these all play an important part. You might have a rural site, but it could be part coastal environment, it could be part of an ONL, or it could be part of a flood overlay. And those are the types of things that as property owners, you really need to know, are you in or are you out? And if you're in, what does that mean for me? So get onto our e-plan maps and have a look at those. And certainly if you've got questions about what that might mean for your future plans or your site, come and talk to us, or give us a call and we can help step you through what that might mean for you. The settlement zone does provide for mixed use residential and commercial uses, so we're encouraging more development in some of those smaller settlement areas so that people have a little hub, and that might include, for example, cafes, small businesses, and a bit of a mixture of residential with obviously the surrounding rural environments as well. So that will be an exciting opportunity for some of those areas. And just a note about the straightforward zone standards. So all of these chapters have standards that apply, and that's your height provisions, your setbacks, any other sort of standards that we might need to include to make sure that we're protecting against adverse effects. So do check those out, but they are pretty straightforward and we've tried to make them as enabling as we possibly can. So just a quick note on designations. This won't affect everybody in the district, but for those that may know, a district plan review does provide an opportunity for requiring authorities to amend their existing designations or propose new ones. So for instance, I'll just use Waka Kotahi, Transpower, North Power, the Ministry of Education as an example. Kaipara District Council are also requiring authority. So we are actually in the process of reviewing our own designations and discussing what these future requirements might be. So designations get notified at the same time as the district plan, and we run a parallel process under the RMA. So it could be that you're a landowner with a gas pipeline running through your property, or the state highway, or it could be that you have a Transpower overhead transmission line running through your property as well. So if that is the case, you might be interested to know what the requiring authority is doing in that space. So definitely keep an eye on the exposure draft, and as we move forward, when we notify the proposed plan next year. So getting towards the end of our presentation now, folks, and hopefully you've enjoyed what I've been talking about so far, or at least I've engaged you a wee bit. But if I haven't, please come along to one of our open days. We start in Ruawai next Tuesday, and then we head across to Paparoa, Mangataroto and Kaiwaka. We will be at the Mangawhal market next Saturday, and then in Mangawhal again on the Monday, and Dargaville on Tuesday the 23rd. So a big lineup of events, but we are looking forward to seeing you all come out, and we are ready to talk to you about your properties and the exposure draft and what you might be looking at putting feedback on. And in addition to those, like tonight, we're running a series of webinars which will run from 7 to 8:30 p.m. on these dates. These are on the website, so if you missed this slide, you can always go on our website for more details there. And we have just covered off 7 topics that we think are important, and hopefully you'll find those helpful. We're doing a little bit more of a deep dive into some of the things I've really only just touched on tonight. So if you're interested in any one of those, come along, or you'll be able to download and watch them after we've done the webinars through YouTube. So yeah, definitely see those. And if some of that prompts any conversations that you want to have, we've got the Chat to a Planner sessions. And Also, we will have assistance if you want help with feedback when you're preparing your feedback to put into council. So just in terms of the journey ahead, so this is a very initial stage of the district plan review. So while it seems like we've got a whole document together, this is the start of the journey. This is a really important time for us to be talking to our communities. And we want to hear from you so that we can develop a notified version of the proposed district plan that is fit for purpose, really. So do make sure you get your feedback in for us to take into account now. The public submission process will run once we notify the plan in mid-2023. So you've got a little bit of time until then, but right now we just want to hear what you guys have got to say. So please do engage now. And it will be another couple of years probably until we actually do land a new operative district plan, but this is the beginning of the journey, and certainly what you say now will shape that future. So get on board. So finally, any questions that are out there? And I'm just going to ask Megan if there's any questions come through the chat. No. Okay, so I've got a couple here that we've received earlier, and the first one is, does the plan have any legal weight as a draft? And so the answer to that is that it does not. So the draft has been put out purely as a draft, and we want your feedback on it. It doesn't have any legal weight whatsoever. But I will note that when we move forward into the proposed district plan, when we notify that, that will have legal weight, and there will be rules that will have immediate legal effect. So the next question that we have from earlier is why is this the last district plan for the Kaipara District Council? So I'm going to ask if Paul's out there, whether you might like to help respond to that question. Paul, are you available there, Paul?
Thank you, Catherine. The Mayor referred to the last chance to actually talk about this, and that is because there are a whole lot of resource management changes coming in. The Natural and Built Environment Act, the Spatial Planning Act, as well as Climate Change Adaptation Act. Those will all come into place over the next few years, will take effect over a period of time. And in the meantime, we will have to have an operative district plan that will give the rules until the new legislation actually picks up. So because we know this legislation is coming, we have to be ready to receive those changes.
Thanks, Paul. I'm going to ask Michael, how can I get in contact with the district planning team? Are you there, Michael?
Yeah, thanks, Catherine. So people can hop onto our website and you can contact our planning team on our website. You can also come see one of the team in person in the Dargaville office if you'd like. And look, as you've said in the presentation, Catherine, the team will be around the district during the next month, and so come and see us in one of the events and have a cup of tea and say hi. Would love to have your feedback and would love you to help shape this new district plan. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. And the final question that I've got here was, how do I know if my property has been rezoned? So there is a link on our council district plan review webpage, and if you click on the link to the e-plan, it will take you into where the GIS maps live. And when you go in there, you can type in your property address, and see whether your property has been rezoned from the Operative District Plan. So do check that out. There is a little legend on the side, and you may have to click the zoning button to see all the different zones, but they should come up automatically. And if you are confused or not sure what's going on, just give us a call or flick us an email and we'd be happy to assist you. So I think, Megan, is that all the questions at the moment?
There's one question here. Where can we locate the exact GMO proposals?
Sure. So the GMO proposal is included in the GMO chapter. So if you go into the exposure draft and go to district-wide matters under, I think it's part 2, you should be able to click on that, and then a drop down will come up for the genetically modified organisms chapter. And in there you should see at the top it'll be objectives and policies and then rules, and then I think there's some standards at the bottom there. Cool. Any more questions? Nope. Okay. Well, on that note, we may need to wrap up slightly earlier, but certainly if there are more questions from the public from tonight, we have the email address for the district plan review. So, I've got my email there as well. So kovawater@kaipara.govt.nz. And just to wrap up the webinar today, we're just going to close out with a little video with a closing karakia. So thanks again, everyone, for your attendance tonight. And if you can come along to our district plan sessions, we would love to see you. So thanks again.
E karakia whakamutunga, kia tau ngā manaakitanga a te mea naro, ki roto ki tēnā o tātou, kia māhea te hua māki ki toi te kupu, toi te mana, toi te aroha, ki hei mauri ora.